Hi, thank you for joining me today. Thank you for coming to my channel. I am Jackie Horton, your wellness and health specialist. I am here to promote wellness and good health, amplified life standing for affirming strategies. I did change the words and uplift those things that are positive that we can build upon. So for Fridays, as I told you, I like to do this thing where I call it the village circle, where I just open a door to talk about or even just listen to other people's thoughts and feelings about certain things that are happening in our larger society. Because the most untrue statement that we use to ward off any discussion is to say, why does it matter? It shouldn't affect you. It's not about you. Why do you need to comment? And we all know that we are interconnected always because we are humans, and that's just the way life is. And so when one affects one or the whole, it affects like a rippling effect everything else that's around it and that's connected to it. So with enough said about that. So the village circle is an opportunity just to, speak your thoughts. And it's also an opportunity for me to share my thoughts as well as I look at how those things in a large society impacts the physical body, the mental health, the spiritual health as well, as well as your emotional equilibrium. All right. So there are a lot of topics that came up over the last few months with Juneteenth, with the LGBTQ month, and also with the recent changes with affirmative action for higher education that took place recently. And so I kind of want to draw out some of those larger topics and just kind of put them all together just for the purpose of just kind of showing sort of like a continuity of how things affect us. So one of the things that I thought of when I was thinking about coming on today was looking at how these different areas that are very, very disconnected are also connected, which draws us back to the point of the statements like, why does it matter? It shouldn't bother you. It's none of your business. Never is a true statement, because anytime that we're connected, in which we are connected, whether we want to be or not, it affects us. Maybe some more than others, but it does happen. Okay. So with everything that's taken place, let's start with the affirmative action change that took place recently with the higher education. So it sort of brought me back into a place of like looking what affirmative action was and why it was developed, and also sort of understand both sides of the fence. Was saying, one side of people are saying that affirmative action seems like a reverse form of discrimination, and then another side of the fence is stating that, well, it matters because of people who have been disenfranchised, people who have been discriminated against, people who have not had the same equal opportunities, needed those things. And so when I was thinking about, that I talk to different people, whether it's via social chat on the platform or it's one-on-one and so on, and just kind of thinking about how to create space where we both feel safe, how to think about these things in a way where the behavior does not lead to more isolation and division. So going back to affirmative action opened the doors for a lot of people, a lot of groups as a result of, when when Franklin D. Roosevelt put it in motion during the war times to make sure that all military men had equal access to contracts and to equipment and to things that would allow them to be successful in war. And over the years, it sort of like had different branches that came out of it, such as the civil rights movement, which pretty much has been consistent with, with Black people being the I guess the core group to push for affirming changes. And that does bring me to the point is that all these issues that I'm going to discuss today always have the undergirth of race, class, gender, religion, and politics. So going back to that piece where, Franklin D. Roosevelt made a movement on affirming other soldiers that were non-white, meaning Black people, and others, made it clear that he would like for everyone to have the equal opportunity and the equal rights and the equal funding and equal equipment, because we all were Americans. So going into the 60s and everything, affirmative action sort of broke out in the civil rights movement, which definitely was about civility towards all humans, which was a movement that was primarily led by African Americans, and did have supports of others, members of the population, like the Jewish community, like the white community, but primarily it was a movement led by African Americans or Black people, which is, maybe a better term, not a better term, but a term that people may prefer over others. So, so that point being said, so with the civil rights movement, then came, the gay movements, the gay rights movements, the women's rights movement, and other people became to be considered under this whole umbrella of affirmative action. That includes veterans and so forth, disabled people, women, having the right to vote, and so forth and so on. And so when I thought about all these things that were coming up when there's changes in a huge societal, law, is going to trigger those areas: race, 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 um, race, matters, class matters, social matters, and so forth. And so those things, it will trigger that. And the thing is that how do we decide how we're going to talk about these things and make space? Because I think one of the things that has come about that has really been a almost a detriment to the community is like, what does inclusivity means? Because inclusivity took on a form where it's almost kind of like took merits out of people's ability and so forth, because it was like everybody is special, everybody is included, everybody should matter, everybody. And it's sort of like minimize, individual efforts and individual efforts and so on for people. And so we have to kind of look at that, what inclusivity means and what exclusivity means. And here's the thing: being a person of color, being a Black woman, an African American woman, and having the history that we've had, not only in the United States, but across Europe, across Asia, and now we're seeing, Africans that are coming up in Arab countries and so forth, it takes on a very, very different connotation. And there is space for that, to talk about that. This does not mean that others are excluded because they can't identify with that. We know most people have had series where they've been oppressed and they've been suppressed, and they still probably do not even have the rights that they should have, and so on. But we do need to kind of think about the space that we ourselves give ourselves to, and feeling about it, as well as, making space for others. And as we kind of move forward in, with all these things, we are looking at almost kind of like a complete climate shift. And I don't mean climate that's in the environment only. I mean the human climate change, where, biological men are stating and stating they need to be affirmed as women despite, biology. You know, that's one. We're stating that somehow, what is true, means that if you have a basis for what is true, then somehow you're not being inclusive, you're not being embracing, and you're not being diverse. And so I do think we probably need to talk about how to get back to the drawing board on that. So I want to hear from you all. What are your thoughts? What are you thinking? How is it showing up in how you're interacting in a larger world? And the more we are in communication, even through social platforms, the more it does matter what the individual person does. It does matter what the group does. It does matter how that pours out into the large community, because at the end of the day, we're all interconnected, and even more so now. So just give you something to think about. As I said, usually when it triggers you, it usually has something to do with race, class, religion, politics, and gender. And guess what? All of those things matter. Thank you for joining me today.